Ranked first in GDP, yet 46th in literacy, according to UNESCO. Good evening, my name is Tasha Dunn, and I'm here to speak to you about the decline in education and our need to reestablish a high standard of learning. I've read several books on the subject. Two of my sister-in-laws are teachers, one in the public school sector and the other in private. I have been to 5 different countries and seen the difference, especially where students, what they think about education. And I have had the privilege of a classical education. In second and third world countries, education is viewed as a privilege, something to be revered. In America, it's viewed as a necessity, a means to an end. We view education as a mandatory necessity, and in the 1960s is when the decline really began. Children go to school to pass a grade, not really to learn or to think for themselves. We are teaching children to memorize, regurgitate, and forget. We are not teaching them how to think for themselves or how to come up with logical conclusions. Since this is happening, when these children grow up, they're easily swayed by their bosses, politicians, musicians, actors, anybody really, because they weren't given the tools to build conclusions on their own. My proposal is to redefine education as food for thought, as a solid foundation so that when these children are older, they can change the world and change the views of people and really be solid in what they believe. My first point would be to train the entire mind versus just training the memory. William Bennett said, "A real education is architecture to the soul." Unfortunately, teachers are not able to give these children structure because they're required by their administrators to reach a certain quota of students to pass these standardized tests. The percentage of students who pass the test, the more government funding they'll get. If they don't pass, then they lose their government funding. The author of Freakonomics wrote, "One staff member at Springfield Charter School told state education investors he felt so pressured by his principal last spring to improve MCAS scores that in order to keep his job, he helped one student write an essay for the test. Another staff member said that he was fired after he accused the principal of encouraging cheating, while another staff member observed a colleague pull some students away from watching a movie so they could fix answers on their tests." Teachers are so worried to educate because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job if they truly are worried and concerned about these kids' minds and development. Proverbs 12:8 says, "A man is praised according to his wisdom, but men with warped minds are despised." Excuse me. My second point would be that education is the food for intelligent thought. Benjamin Franklin said, "If a man empties his purse into his head, no man can take it away from him. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." After an interview with a former classmate from high school, who is now a Harvard dropout because he chooses to live his life by Mark Twain's philosophy of, "I never let my education get in the way of my learning," said that, was speaking on the positive aspects of Socratic learning, meaning that the students are encouraged to engage in the text and extrapolate their own, what they think that the author is saying. This really helps students to think. And he compared the mind to the body and saying that if you exercise it and use it, then you'll be able to, excuse me, you'll be able to think more quickly and come to conclusions faster and be able to form intelligent thoughts. But if you don't use it and you let it deteriorate and you memorize, regurgitate, and forget, then your mind will be weak and pretty much useless in your older age. Proverbs 2:10-11 says, "For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you, and understanding will guard you." We want the children of the future to be guarded, and we want them to use discretion and have wisdom But in order to do that, we must first build them a foundation, which brings me to my third point. Albert Einstein said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." We must encourage these children and give them the tools to find what they are good at and encourage them in those paths. Right now, we're just putting a blanket over everything and saying, memorize this and learn this. We're not giving them specific tools and helping them cultivate what they are good at and having our society as a whole thrive. Right now, we're being held back because our children don't know what to do when they're older. Matthew 7:24-27. "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rains came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall because its foundation on the rock had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down and the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Really what we need to do is give children, anybody, the tools to think so that when the storms of adversity come and beat against that house, they can react quickly and stand strong. I'll end with this quote by C.S. Lewis. "The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts." Right now, we need our children to be thirsty for life, really. Giving them education is giving them life, giving them a future, and giving their children a future, giving this country a future. So today I call everyone, parents, grandparents, future parents, everyone, to stop and think. Right now, I feel like we are so caught up with actions and doing and going and moving that we forget to think about what we're doing or why we're doing it or what happens after we do these actions. I challenge you to ask the hard questions and find out the why behind the answer instead of just giving a blanket answer and being okay with it. Find out why that is the answer. And mostly and lastly, I challenge you to challenge those around you to ask the hard questions and to find out why they believe what they believe and get a firm and solid foundation. Encourage your teachers, your administrators, those around you to put solid foundations under the children.
So, still recording?